recorded.
So in the previous session, we have discussed about SOQL queries, and we have discussed what exactly an SOQL query and what it indicates, and how to prepare SOQL queries in Apex programming, and what is the syntax we used to follow to prepare an SOQL query. And upon preparing this SOQL queries, what are the various governor limits that has been imposed by Salesforce, which we need to keep in mind upon writing the queries, and what kind of best practices we used to follow upon preparing these queries to avoid the governor limits. And we have discussed the various ways to execute SOQL queries. And yesterday we have discussed one of the mechanism, that is query editor from developer console. So upon executing the SOQL queries, we have two ways are available. First one, by using query editor from developer console. Second one, with the help of Apex programming. The first one already we are done. Yesterday we have discussed how to prepare, how to execute, how to see the results of the SOQL query by using query editor. Yesterday we have discussed. Now, today we'll see the second mechanism. This is the most important option. Now, upon preparing and executing the SOQL queries, not only the query editor, through Apex programming also we can execute SOQL queries. So with the help of Apex programming also, we can prepare, we can execute, we can represent the records written by SOQL queries. But in this case, whenever we are going to be executing SOQL queries through Apex programming, Apex divides SOQL queries into two categories. Apex divides SOQL queries into two categories. The first one, we have static SOQL. We have static SOQL. Second one, we have dynamic SOQL. We have static SOQL, dynamic SOQL. So Apex divides SOQL queries into two categories. First one, static SOQL query. Second one, dynamic SOQL query. Okay. Now, so in this case, first of all, we have to understand what is static SOQL, how to prepare, what is the syntax we used to follow for static SOQL queries, how to execute them, how to capture the results. Okay, now let's see. Now, as part of this static SOQL queries, first one. First, we'll go with the static SOQL queries. Then now tell me generally, what do you mean by static SOQL? Static means what? Fixed. Static in the sense fixed, which can't be changed at runtime. This will be always fixed value. The query will be always a fixed. So whenever we are preparing the SOQL query, at the time of definition itself, at the time of preparing the query itself, we need to indicate what columns you would like to fetch from the object. We have to indicate what conditions you would like to apply to filter the records. That means while preparing the query itself, we need to specify the column names, we need to specify the conditions which you would like to use to filter the records. Once the query has been prepared, the query will be fixed always, which cannot be editable. At runtime, when you try to add some more columns to the query, when you try to add some more conditions to the query, Salesforce won't support because the query has been freezed. We can't modify that value. Query is always fixed. Now, in this case, how can we make that query as static? Whenever if you want to make an SOQL query as static, Whatever the SOQL query that we have prepared, just we can able to enclose this SOQL query with the square braces. Whenever we are enclosing the SOQL query with a square braces, this is a static SOQL query. That is the indication. Okay. If the SOQL query has been enclosed with square braces, it's a static. If the SOQL query has been enclosed with single quote, then it's a dynamic SOQL. This is the indications. Okay. Static SOQL query should be always enclosed with square braces. So whenever we are writing your SOQL query inside this square braces, that SOQL query will be static SOQL query, which will be fixed, which can't be editable at runtime. At the time of execution of this program, we can't add any more columns to the query. We can't add any more conditions to the query at runtime. Now, in this case, once the query has been prepared, then how can we execute the query? How can we execute? Whenever if you want to execute that SOQL query, static SOQL query, we no need to execute manually. Static SOQL queries will be executing automatically by Salesforce. Whenever we are enclosing the query inside that square braces, at that moment, Salesforce will be executing this SOQL query. We no need to invoke the static SOQL query manually. Static SOQL queries are automatically executing by Salesforce by default. Now, so in this case, whenever we are going to be enclosing the SOQL query, okay, inside the square braces, automatically Salesforce will execute that SOQL query by default. Now tell me, once a query has been executed, query will be returning some records, right? Yes. Query will be returning some records. Now in this case here, whenever the query will be executing, query will return some records to that calling environment. In this case, how many records it will return? Maximum 50,000 records over here. Now, suppose for example, my table is having only one record. How many records my query will return now? One record. Suppose my table is having 10 records. How many records my query will return? 10 records. That means my query can return either one record or multiple records. Suppose if the table is empty, then query will return what? Empty, nothing. Now, in this case, if the query returns only one record as a result, how to store this result? If the query returns multiple records as a result, how to store this result? These are the two cases which came into the picture. Okay. Upon using SOQL query through Apex programming, if the query has been executed, if the query is returning some records, in that case, if the query returns one record, then how to store that result? If the query returns multiple records as a result, how can we hold, where we can hold, how to process these records? Now let's see. Okay, these two scenarios we'll see practically one by one. Clear up to this one? Now make a note of this one. We can invoke the SOQL query by using Apex programming also. We can invoke the SOQL query by using Apex programming also. Now, Apex divides the SOQL queries into two types. First one, static SOQL query. Second one, dynamic SOQL query. Static SOQL query and the dynamic SOQL query. Then, what do you mean by this static SOQL query? Now let's see. Now, in this approach, the SOQL query should be always static or fixed, which can't be editable at runtime. That is, while preparing the query, we have to add the required fields and conditions to the query. But at runtime, we can't include any more columns and conditions to the query. Now, note, static SOQL query should be always enclosed with square braces. We need to specify SOQL query. Static SOQL query should be always enclosed with square braces. Static SOQL queries will get executed automatically by default. Now, we no need to invoke them manually. Now, once the query has been executed, then it will return the results. Now, in that case, if the SOQL query returns only one record, then how can we handle? We'll see. Then we will see if the query returns multiple records. Done with these points? Now, let's see. Done with this? No. So let's see if the SOQL query returns only one record as a result. How can we handle it? How to store? How to get each and every field value? Now let's see. For example, I'm preparing an SOQL query. I'm preparing an SOQL query, which is a static. Static SOQL queries should be enclosed with square braces. That already we know. I'm enclosing this SOQL query with square braces. I'm writing the query. Select ID of the account, name, rating, industry, annual revenue, phone, and the facts, active status from account. This is a query. So now yesterday we know how to prepare the queries we have prepared here. The same query I'm enclosing in square braces. Now whenever I'm going to be enclosing this SOQL query, then it will be called as static, right? It's a static SOQL query. Now, do we need to invoke this static SOQL query manually here? No, these will be executing
It gets
automatically.
automatically.
Now, once the query has been getting executed, it returns a record. Okay, now assume that in my account object, I'm having only one record is available. This is my account object here. Now, I'm having only one record in my account object. In this account object, I have only one record. Only one record is available. Now tell me this query will return how many records now? One record, right. Now this query is going to be returning only one record to me here. Now this is a record returned by my SOQL query. My query is going to be returning this record values. It returns the record ID and the name, rating, and the industry, annual revenue, and the phone, and the facts, and the active status. These are the values. Now assume that this is a record that we have. I'm having this recorded details. So this is the recorded details that we have. The record ID is 00145667799. Assume that this is the record ID. So now the name is some Rakesh Kumar. The rating value some hot. Industry is some education. Annual revenue some 25 lakhs. Phone number it is having some value. Fax number it is having some value. And the active status some yes. So now whatever the order we have specified the columns in the same order record value will be collected. Now tell me in this case, if the query returns only one record, how to store this record? Now my query is returning what record? Account record. How to store account record? Object will be holding the table. There is nothing but the table. How to store this account record? Suppose for example, I have a value here. I want to store this value. Then what we can do? I want to store this value. Normal, general. Block, no. I want to store this value. Simple.
Assign a variable to it, sir.
Right. In this case, what needs to be done? A variable. We need to define a variable here. What type of variable?
Int type.
What type of variable?
Integer.
Integer variable. Why integer variable? because this is a numerical value which is an integer part. So in order to store this value, we are defining one integer variable. Like we are defining integer some x equals to, we are storing this value. Okay. I have a record. So for example, I am having a name some Hyderabad. Now, this is what type of value? String value. How to store this value? We have to define a variable of type string. Now, we are defining a string variable here. String some s equals to, inside this variable, we can store this value. Now I have a record. What this record here? What is this record? What object
Account,
record?
account record.
Account record. Let's say account record. To store the account record, how to define a variable?
Account ACC is equal to the record.
In this case, we have to define account some ACC equals to record here. You no need to write that new account. We no need to write that here. Directly it will be getting that information because record values are passing. Now, in this case, what happened? To store the integer value, we are defining one integer variable. To store the string value, one string variable. To store the boolean value, one boolean variable. To store the account record, account variable. To store the position record, position variable. To store the opportunity record, opportunity variable. Just you can define a variable of associated type. Now this record is of type what? Account. Why my query is collecting the data from account object? This is an account record. To store one account record, one single variable. Suppose if you want to store more number of records, then to store one single value, we are using a normal variable here. To store multiple values, then multiple means what? Then how to define? Suppose I'm having four values here: 450, 600, 900, 1400. Now, then I'm having these four values. Four values will be of type what? Integer. How to store multiple integer values within a single variable? Array. What type of array?
List.
Integer array, because these are integer array here. Now, we are using integer array here. Now, or else then? Any other? Instead of using array, then list collection. List of what? List of what? Integer, right. List of integer. Now, so now for one value, simply integer. If it is more than one, list of integer. Here also, if it is a single record, then account. If it is more than one, that's it. Okay, list of account. That's it. Simple concept here. Okay. Now that's what here. If it is a single variable, single value, then define a variable of that associated type. Now here it is going to be returning one account record. In order to store this account record, I'm defining a variable over here of account type. Account I'm defining a variable of that account type, ACC record. I'm defining a variable of that ACC record type. That's it. Okay. So now here I'm preparing an SOQL query. Now my query will be returning only one record. If the query returns only one record, now I'm storing that record by defining a variable of associated type. Because my query will be returning account record over here, because our object is account from which I'm querying the data, so that this is an account record, so I'm storing the variable of type account. So in this case, whenever the record has been getting collected, now the record value will be storing inside this. This is the record reference. The record reference will be storing inside ACC record. Okay? The record reference will be storing inside this variable ACC recorded. Now tell me then how can we access each and every value? Now how to access this value? This is what? ID. This is what? Name. This is what? Rating. This is what? Industry. Annual revenue. Phone number. Fax number. Okay, active status. Then how to access this each and every value? ACC record dot ID, ACC record dot name, ACC record dot rating. Like that, we need to collect each and every value. That's it. Simple concept. Okay. This is called as the object name here. That means reference name. Okay, reference name dot field name. Directly we can fetch the data. Okay. Sorry,
SEC record is
it won't. No, no, the actual table will not be changing here. Just we are getting the data from the table. That's it. Okay. So now here in this case, whenever we are going to be collecting the record from the object, if the SOQL query returns only one record as a result, then we can able to reference each and every record by field values by using this reference. Now collect the record values, store the record values within a single variable. In this variable, we can able to access each and every field value. Now I would like to check if ACC record dot ID not equals to null. That means I'm checking that whether record is available or not. Maybe my table may be empty, I don't know. Now, so I'm checking that if the record ID is not null, that means ID is available. That means record is available. So there is a record. Then I would like to show the record information. So system dot debug account record ID is I would like to represent ACC record dot ID. I want to collect this value. System.debug account name is ACC record dot name. System.debug contact number is we can specify ACC record dot phone. System.debug active status is we can specify ACC record dot active underscore underscore C. Like that, here we can able to fetch each and every field value we can represent. That's it. Okay. Whenever we are using this SOQL query, if the query returns only one record as a result, then collect the record and store into a variable of the associated type. Once a record reference has been stored inside the variable, then collect each and every field value. We can represent the record values on the debug log file by using reference name dot field name. Okay, understood the concept now? This is the first approach here. Next, we have second approach. We'll see that. Now, make a note of this one. Yes, this reference name you can give anything, whatever you want. Yes, it's like as an object. Yes, we are not creating
Sir,
an empty object. Generally, whenever we are writing account, some ACC equals to new account. In this case, what will happen? It is going to be creating an empty object which doesn't have any record. But already I'm holding one record. I want to store this record inside this variable itself. For that one here, we are going to be using account ACC equals to this record reference. Yes. Then in that case, it will create the object of this class. In this object, automatically this record also will be storing inside this. Okay. Understood the concept here?
could you repeat again, sir?
No,
ఎవరెందుకే
it's
ఉతుకుతున్నావు
if the SOQL query returns only one record as a result, then we have to store the record by defining the variable of the associated type. If the SOQL query returns only one record as a result, then we have to store the record by defining the variable of the associated type. Syntax. A subject data type. We can specify the reference name or the variable name equals to, we can write the SOQL query, which returns only one record. For example, account, some ACC record equals to select the ID, name, rating, industry, annual revenue, phone, and the fax, active status from account. Now here I would like to check if ACC recorded dot ID not equals to null. Then I would like to specify account record ID is ACC recorded dot ID. System dot debug account name is ACC recorded dot name. Rating value is ACC recorded dot rating. Industry name is ACC recorded dot industry. Active status is, I would like to indicate ACC record dot active status. That's it. This is the first approach. Whenever we are preparing the SOQL query, the SOQL query will be getting executed automatically. If the query returns only one record as a result, then we can able to define a variable of the associated type, store that record values. The record reference will be storing inside the ACC record variable, and from there we can able to collect that each and every field value. We can check whether the record is holding ID or not. If the ID is available, that means record is available. So if the record is available, then collect each and every field value of the record, and we can represent on your debug log file by using system.debug state.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, the second part, is it mandatory, sir? Like if account record.id is not equal to null?
Now, suppose here if the record is not available, then why should we execute this piece of code? It's a waste of resources, right? That's what. If the record is available, then only I would like to execute this piece of code.
Okay, so if the record is available, it is not sufficient,
Mm,
like if we see the result in the execution window, the
No,
result window.
because no, because here we are not showing that result in window from now onwards. We want the record through
Okay,
programming.
okay, sir. Got it, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Done with this? Now, this is the first case. If the SOQL query returns only one record, then this is the approach we used to follow. Define a variable of the associated type, store the record, access each and every field value one by one. Now come to the second case. Suppose if the SOQL query returns multiple records as the results. Now, let's see. For example, assume that I'm having an object. For example, I'm having an object. So this is the object that we have. This is also an account object here. In this account object, I'm having two records are available. So this is an account object. In this account object, I'm having two records. There are two records are available in my account object. Now I'm preparing an SOQL query. Now I'm preparing an SOQL query here also. I'm preparing this SOQL query. Select the ID of the record, name, rating, industry, annual revenue, phone, and the facts, active status from account. I'm preparing an SOQL query, and then through this SOQL query, I would like to fetch the data here. This is the query I have prepared. Now my object contains two records. Now tell me, do I need to execute this SOQL query manually by your own? No, because it is a static SOQL, it will execute automatically. Once the query has been executed, it returns some records. Now assume that this is the first record it has written. This is the second record. Two records has been written by my SOQL query. Like for example, I'm giving some different values. I'm having some different values. Now, this is the record, second record value here, 001, okay, 88992233. This is the record ID. Name is some Sandeep Kumar. Rating value heart. Industry is some manufacturing. Annual revenue 82 lakhs. Contact number some value. And then this is the fax number, active status. These are the two records are returning by my SOQL query. Now this is one account record. This is second account record. Two records are returning by my SOQL query. Why? My object contains two records. Suppose my object contains 10 records there. How many records it will return? 10 records. If the object contains 1000 records, then 1000 records. Now tell me how to store these records. Can I use arrays? Yes, because all are account types only. All the records are account records. No, no. Consider this entire thing as array. Sorry, like as a record. This is one variable. This is second value. We are getting the complete record. This is also account record. This is also account record. Can I store these two records inside my account array? Can we store? Yes. Okay, fine. Now suppose for example, I'm giving this account array here. How to define? We are defining that account array. Account. I'm defining this array. some ACC. Inside this, I'm storing this result. Now my query returns how many records now? Two records. So both can be able to store over here. In this case, if the query returns 20 records, then do we have the possibility to extend the size of array? That is a problem. Suppose I'm defining array of size some 20. Now my query has returned only two records. What about the remaining 18 records memory? Waste. This is a problem. So that here, don't go with arrays, go with collections. Okay? Collections are having dynamic memory allocation, arrays are having static memory allocation. Okay? So that here, whenever we are going to be dealing with these records by using SOQL query, if the query returns only one record as a result, store that record by defining a single variable. If the query returns multiple records as a result, then go with the help of list collection. I'm defining a list collection. How to define the list collection here? List of what? Account. Why account? Because this is an account object. Records are account records. So I'm defining list of account. I'm indicating a list accounts. Okay, clear? If it is a normal variable, single record, then normal single variable. If it is more than one record, collection. Okay, list of object. Now, in this case, whatever the records has been written by this SOQL query, now this record reference will be storing inside my collection. Inside the collection, it will store this record reference. Now tell me, how many records my query has written now?
Two
How do you know?
records.
How can we check? LST accounts then? Hmm. Okay, then tell me. Hmm. How many records my query has written? I want to check it out. How to check that? How many records my query has written? I don't want to check the condition. What? Size method. Size method. Okay, use the collection methods. Now, in this list collection, this is one element, this is second element. Because element is of type account. This entire account record is one element. This entire account record is second element, and then third element, and then fourth element. How to count how many elements are available in the collection? Size method. That's it. Simple. Now use that collection size. System.debug collection size is, we can specify LST, that means list. Okay, a shortcut notation. LST accounts dot size. Okay, now we are able to represent the size of this collection here. Now in this case, I want to print those records. How to print these records now? I want to check whether the collection is empty or not. Then how to check collection is empty or not? Hmm. LST accounts is collection, not single record. Hmm. How to check this collection is empty or not? Is empty method, right? Now we can able to check that collection methods. I'm using not operator. If LST accounts is not empty, here I'm using this not operator over there here, an exclamation symbol. So if the collection is not empty, that means collection is having some records. If the collection contains some records, then I would like to iterate the collection. How to iterate? By using for loop. I'm using a for loop in order to iterate the collection over here. Now, how to iterate this collection now? I'm using the colon. In the right side, what we need to specify? In the left side, what we need to specify? Right side, what we need to specify? Data source. That means collection. What is the collection name? LST accounts. LST accounts is of type what? List collection. List of what? Hmm. What record? Yes, object record. What is this? List of account. Okay, account. Now, then what we need to do here? Define a variable of type what? Account. Account ACC record. From here, rest of the story will be same. Now that means what we are doing here, now we are iterating the collection from starting to ending. We are collecting the first account record. We are storing inside this variable here. Once a record has been stored in the variable, print the record values one by one. The remaining story will be same. Now we can able to print the record values. System.debug account record ID is, how to access that? ACC record dot ID. System.debug account name is ACC record dot name. System.debug rating value is ACC record dot rating. And then I would like to specify active status. Active status. Okay. Then automatically it will be printing the first record details. Then it will collect the second record from the collection. It will print the second record like that. All the records it will iterate automatically. Clear? Understood the concept here? Just it. Not confident, huh? No. Sorry? Okay. Hmm. Now see. So now here this is the SOQL query here. I'm preparing this SOQL query. Now this query is going to be collecting two records from my object. So now these are the two records here. I have these two records. These are the two records. Now, whatever the two records are available, those two records I would like to store. Because what my query will do, just my query will be getting executed automatically. It will collect the two records. It will be passing that record to you. So once we are executing the query, query will be returning the records to me back. I need to catch those records, right? Because I need the records I want to show on my screen. It may be visual first page or lighting component, debug log file, whatever, anything. I want to collect those records I want to show on my screen. So that I would like to store these records. Now, how can we store these records? Here we have two records. Now, because my table contains only two records, it is returning two. Suppose if my table contains 5 records, it will return 5. If my table contains 100, it will return 100. So we don't know how many records are there in the table here. Now, I'm assuming that I'm having two records, so my query will return two records. Whatever the two records written by my query, I would like to store. For that one, I'm using list collection. I'm not using an array. Why? Because if I'm defining an array, we need to indicate the size. If I'm giving the size, that size will be fixed. If my query returns more record, it can't handle here. If the query returns less records, then memory will be waste. Okay, that is the problem. For that one, I'm using a list collection. List of account. Why I'm defining list of account? Because the query will be getting the data from account object. I'm sure about that here. I'm sure about that the records are from account. If you don't know the object name, then we are using list of yes object. Okay, understood the concept here? Now, list of yes object when we will use, if you are storing multiple object records within a single collection, then we can use list of yes object. But this is not multiple objects, this is only one object. What object? Account. Because always SOQL query can return the result from one object here. Now here in this case, now my query is collecting the data from account. So now the records will be ultimately the account records. To store the account records, I'm using a list collection list of account. For this collection, I'm giving a name LST accounts. LST means what? List. Okay. For the easy identification over here. Now, LST accounts means it's a list collection. Suppose if we are using a map, then map account. So we can understand by looking into this name itself, we can understand is it a list, is it a map, is it a set. For that one, I'm using LST. These are some coding standards we used to follow in the real time. So now LST accounts means what? Directly we can understand it's a list collection. Okay. Now, so now LST accounts is the collection. In this collection, these two records will be getting stored over here. So now once the two records has been stored inside this collection, now I would like to know. Okay, I would like to know that here. How many records my collection, my query has returned. So now in this case, this first record will be treating as one element because this list of account, that means whole account record will be one element. Second account record will be second element. So if you want to count how many elements are available, we are using the help of size method. So now in this case, I'm using LST accounts dot size because my data is there inside my collection here, LST accounts. Now I'm checking this collection size, how many records are available in the collection. Once the collection size has been identified, if the collection is not empty, that means there are some records are available, then only I would like to iterate over here. Suppose if the table is empty, query returns how many records? Zero records, nothing.
Records.
If the nothing is available, then why should we iterate my collection here? It's a waste of time, right? That's what here I'm checking that collection over here. Now, I'm checking this collection over here. If the collection is empty or not. If the collection is not empty, then I'm collecting each and every record from the collection. So I'm iterating the collection here. This is a collection name, LST accounts. Whenever I'm using this enhanced for loop, now whenever I'm passing the collection name, it will be iterating the collection from starting to ending automatically here. Whatever the two records are available, it will collect the two records. From the two records, it will collect the first record, it will store the record reference inside this variable. Now query will be collection is having two records here. Assume that this is the record one. This is the record one. This is the second record. Now it will collect the first record, store that record reference into this variable. From there here, by using this reference, we can collect object name dot ID, object name dot name, object name dot rating. Like that, we can collect these values over here. We can represent. Once the first record details has been printed, then it will go for loop will be going back to the collection. It will collect the second record, place into the variable. It will print the second record also. Like that, all the records will be printed automatically. Clear? Understood the concept now? Now, feeling comfortable? Still confusion? No, right? Now, make a note of this one. Now, if the SOQL query returns multiple records as the results. Now, let's see. If the SOQL query returns multiple records as a result, then we have to store the records by defining a list collection of the associated type. Syntax. List of a subject data type, reference name equals to, we need to specify that SOQL query, which returns multiple records. For example, select the ID of the account, name, rating, industry, annual revenue, phone and the fax, active status from account. I would like to represent. Now, the collection size is lst accounts dot size. I'm verifying this. Now, I'm collecting each and every record for each and every account record from the collection I would like to represent. System.debug account record ID is ACC record.id. Account name is rating value is active status is active status. Like that, we can print these values. Done with this? Next. Now, This is the static SOQL queries concept here. Now, as of now, what we have discussed about the static SOQL query, how to prepare static SOQL query over here, and then how can we use the syntax, how the query will get executed. If the query returns one record, how to handle. If the query returns multiple records as a result, how to handle them, we have discussed. Okay, next. Second one, dynamic SOQL query. Then what do you mean by dynamic SOQL query? No,
They're actually flexible. I mean, in between, we can edit it during the runtime.
sorry. We can edit the query. Editing the query means what generally what we can do. Okay, if you want to add some new fields, okay, right? Hmm. Suppose here in this case, there are some situations over here where we need to add some columns to the query at runtime. Sometimes I would like to add some conditions at runtime here. So dynamically, I would like to change. Based on some functionality, based on some feature, I would like to include some more columns into the query. Initially, I have added some 4 columns in my query here. Select ID, name, rating, industry. Based on execution of my code, in the middle of the execution, I want to include phone and the facts also to my query. In that case, if you want to add some columns to the query dynamically at runtime, if you want to add some conditions to the query dynamically at runtime, then we can able to go with the help of dynamic SOQL query. So dynamic SOQL query will be giving the provision to you to modify the query dynamically at runtime, to prepare the query dynamically at runtime by adding some columns, by adding some conditions to the query dynamically. During the program execution, we can add some columns, we can add some conditions to the query. Now, in this case here, if I keep on adding some columns and the conditions, then the query will be getting prepared. When the query will execute, it won't execute here. It won't execute it by its own. So dynamic SOQL queries will not be executed by its own. We need to invoke this query manually here. How to invoke this dynamic SOQL query? In order to invoke the dynamic SOQL query, we have to use the help of a method called as database.query method. Database is a built-in class. Okay, database is a built-in class which has been given by Salesforce to interact with your Salesforce objects dynamically at runtime, and we can perform all the DML operations. We can execute some SOQL queries also, so that we can use the help of database class. In that class, we have a method called as a query method, which is used to execute your SOQL query. So for that reason, dynamic SOQL query, we are always storing in the form of string variable. Okay, dynamic SOQL query should be always stored in the form of string variable. Once the query has been formed, we can execute the query dynamically at runtime with the help of database.query method here. Okay, understood the concept now? Now, in this case, let's see here. For example, I'm preparing a query. I'm preparing a SOQL query here, which will be storing in the string variable. String, some accounts query equals to, I'm adding that. Select the ID, name, rating, industry. Later, after writing some piece of code, okay, after writing some piece of code, I'm adding some more columns here. Accounts query plus equals. So that means I'm concatenating something here. Because it's a string value, right? Keep on, we can able to append. Now I'm adding that some more columns here. Comma phone, comma fax, comma priority, RSLA. Now, after writing few more lines of code, we can able to include that. Accounts query plus equals to, I'm indicating from account, where some condition. Okay, that means what? Instead of preparing the whole query at a time, I'm preparing the query in terms of pieces. I'm collecting one piece here, I'm preparing one piece. Here I'm preparing second piece. Here I'm preparing third piece. We are going to mixing these pieces to make it as a query. Once a whole query has been formed, then we can able to execute this query by using database.query method here. Because if you want to keep on add the pieces, then it should be in the form of string. If it is a string, then only we can keep on concatenate. We can able to add some content. That's what here dynamic SOQL query should be always stored in the form of a string variable. That is the indication. Okay, clear? Now make a note of this one. Dynamic SOQL query. In this approach, we can prepare the SOQL query dynamically at runtime by adding the required fields and conditions to the query at runtime. Now, dynamic SOQL query should be always stored in the form of string variable. Now, syntax. We can specify string variable name equals to, we have to specify that SOQL query. Now, once the query has been prepared, then we can invoke the SOQL query by using database.query method, which always returns the result in the form of list collection. Syntax. List of a subject data type, reference name equals to database.query. Here we can specify the SOQL query. Because in some cases we need to pass the values at runtime. We need to add some conditions at runtime here. Okay, we don't want to include that columns and the conditions at the time of preparation. We need to add some columns at runtime also. Like for example, assume that for example I'm searching for a job. So the Done with this? Now. So these are the two types of SOQL queries are available, static and dynamic. Then how to prepare this static SOQL queries, how to prepare dynamic, we have discussed with theoretical. Practical concept we'll see. Now, will it be available tomorrow? Tomorrow is Saturday.
Yes, sir.
All the people are available?
Yes, sir.
If you all are available, I will take up the session. No, no. Now, all the people are there available?
Sir.
Okay, two members.
Yes, sir.
Now, now, anyhow, I am having that 7 o'clock session also tomorrow. So I would like to take up 5 o'clock also. That's what. Available? Okay. So
Yes, sir.
tomorrow we'll have the session. Okay. Tomorrow we are having the session as usual at 5 o'clock. Okay. Sunday will be the off.
Okay, sir.
Now, thank you.
Sir, last two
We'll
lines,
be having
please.
the practical session over here. Don't miss that. So tomorrow I would like to discuss okay, three different styles of writing SOQL queries. Okay. So tomorrow I'm going to discuss about upon writing the SOQL query, three different styles are available in the real time we are going to use. Those three styles I would like to show you in tomorrow's session with practical. Okay. Don't miss that part. The same ways we are going to be using in our programming also. Okay. If anybody
Okay,
is
sir.
unable to attend, then you can join through online. Okay. You don't have any links. Already meeting link is there in the WhatsApp group, right? Then